Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Jay the One-Eye Gamer video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the brand new information that dropped for Stranger Than Heaven, and I hope you guys can feel how excited I am about this because I made a video a couple weeks ago called When Could We See Stranger Than Heaven Next? And obviously as of right now that's outdated, but during that video, basically suffice it to say, I predicted that we wouldn't see any new information on this game until either the Summer Games Fest of this year or the VGAs of this year. And my only reasoning for that was because all the major trailers we got for Stranger Than Heaven, Jeff Keighley always seemed to have, so I kind of figured, okay, so if we haven't seen anything from like Sony or Xbox at the point, I would assume then we were going to see it at Jeff Keighley's events. But lo and behold, I was surprised that, speaking of Xbox, they were the ones who actually had a feature on Stranger Than Heaven from their Xbox partner showcase that happened a couple days ago, which is where we're getting the information from. So I'm very hyped about this, and I'm more than happy to be wrong that we got to see it at such an early stage, which I am so happy is the case. Now, what the new trailer gave us with all this new information? Well, the first thing we want to talk about is the fact that the game is no longer taking place in 3 distinct time periods, which we thought was the only case. No, it's taking place in 5 different times. The original times we thought were only 1915, 1929, and 1943. The reason for that is I think during the 1915 trailer, there was a snippet in there that specifically called out those 3 years. So I believe a lot of people online, myself included, believe that the game was just going to revolve around those 3 time periods, which technically is 14 years between each other. So that would have been an interesting take on it. But no, lo and behold, the game's not just going to be 3, it's going to be 5 brand new eras. Those being 1915, 1929, 1943, like in the previous video, but then we got 2 more eras, that being 1951 and 1965, which is very interesting to me because basically if we're going with my theory about Mako, who's the main character, starting the game off as like maybe a 20-year-old, we're basically going to see him all the way up to his 70s, and the reason that is because if you don't know, from 1915 to 1929, that's a 14-year gap. From 1929 to 1943, that's another 14-year gap. Now, what's interesting is the next time frame we see from 1943 to 1951, that's only an 8-year gap, but then we also have another 14-year gap from 1951 all the way to 1965. So if we do the math and he starts off as a 20-year-old in 1915, by the time we get to 1965, he'll be 70 years old, which I don't think we can say there's a lot of games where you get to play as a 70-year-old main character. Honestly, the concept, if that's how it's all going to go down, is really interesting to me because we're going to be seeing this man through a very good chunk of his life, basically the majority of his life, and we'll get to see all the major events that are playing out. So if that is how they're going to play it, if there's not some kind of supernatural thing going along, which was kind of semi-hinted at the end of the 1943 trailer, we can see almost his entire life through the whole game, which will be very interesting. I don't think there's a lot of games that give you that time frame of a character. I think for most cases, you get like maybe their early years when they're like a teenager, early adult, and then they might do a time skip to when they're probably about like maybe late 20s, early 30s to give you a perspective of like this is a time change. But I think it's very rare, or if it hasn't been done at all, where you actually get to see a character go from various stages of their lives throughout an entire game, where we get to see a young Mako basically in his early 20s going all the way up to his 70s, basically an entire lifetime. I'm very curious to see what kind of story they're going to craft when they go around this. And another fun thing about the fact that we're doing 5 eras means we're also going to be dealing with 5 different cities. Now, they really didn't go into a whole lot of detail about the other cities, but one city that does show up, which is very interesting, is in 1965, you get to see a little city called Kamurocho. Now, for all the Yakuza / Like a Dragon fans, you know that is a major city in that entire franchise. So it's very curious that we're going to be going to that fictitious city in Stranger Than Heaven. So I wonder if this is going to be somewhat related to the Yakuza / Like a Dragon series. And on that note, I'd like to pose a question to any Yakuza / Like a Dragon fans who watch this video. Is Kamurocho really that important of a city? I know it's fictitious because it was made up specifically for the Yakuza / Like a Dragon series. And my knowledge of this series is very slim, only because the only game I've actually ever played was Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon with Ichiban as the main character, which was an amazing game, by the way. Had some hiccups, but I really enjoyed my time with it, and I can't wait to start Infinite Wealth when I get around to it. But back to what I was asking, is Kamurocho really that important of a place in the RGG studio works? Now, I think they've only ever worked on the Yakuza / Like a Dragon series. I know they are working on Virtua Fighter 6, which does look pretty cool. Honestly, I don't know if that's also going to have like a Kamurocho stage in it. I think it'd be very funny and a nice nod. And also, speaking about it being an RGG game, we do know that the game is going to focus on the underworld of Japan. So basically still in the vein of Yakuza / Like a Dragon, because I know those stories also focus on the underworld side of that, with Ichiban obviously being my main introduction to that franchise, and his story being very beautiful. I'm not gonna lie, I actually teared up near the end of Like a Dragon. If you know, you know. And honestly, I just loved being with Ichiban. He was such a great character, funny, heartwarming, very endearing, and also just a really great guy. So I wonder if they're gonna give the same story storytelling abilities they've done for Ichiban and Kiryu and give it to Mako. Now, obviously, those guys have had other games to tell a whole story, so this will be the first time we get to see a character, like I said earlier in the video, go from their origins to basically their end game. So I'm very curious to see how emotionally in-depth Mako's story is going to be going forward, since we'll actually get to see it play out through the game itself when we switch over to the different time periods. And now, time for a very bad segue. We're going to talk about the combat, because we got to see a lot more of it in the game, and it looks a lot more brutal than it did in Like a Dragon. And my only frame of reference for the Yakuza series is that the gameplay is kind of arcadey, not in a bad way, but they don't seem to be focused on like really environmental and gritty combat. Now, this is just stemming from me from what I've watched of gameplay videos, but for Stranger Than Heaven, we get to see some really crazy stuff. I mean, Mako is basically running around with what looks to be a butcher knife, and he's using that to slice guys up and stab them. And he's also running around with a katana. We get to see him pin people down in a grappling move. When he does pin them down, we get to see him basically attack their face. He also uses a hammer as well to smash some guy's head in, and then we also get to watch him run around with a mallet just smacking fools. We already knew the game was going to have a lot of environmental effects into it, like we saw in the 1915 and the 1943 trailers. So it's cool to actually get to see it running, and what look is probably going to be final gameplay, which if that is the case, this looks so smooth, and it looks like it's going to be such a blast to play. I can't wait to see any more gameplay on this as well. And another thing they confirmed about the game as well through the trailer is that it's going to focus primarily on a jazz-inspired OST, which sounds amazing. When you get the chance to watch this trailer, you can hear the jazz music that's playing, and it's really cool. Like, it really gets you in the mood for some of the crazy stuff you're seeing on screen. Obviously, I'm not playing it out of fear of copyright, so when you get the chance, please check it out. The trailer's so awesome, by the way, and I think the jazz-oriented OST is going to hit so hard, so I can't wait to hear even more banger tracks that are going to be in the game. And something that kind of caught me off guard throughout this trailer was also the fact that Snoop Dogg is in the game, and what's cool about that, he seems to be the character who looks like he would be teaching the main character some kind of fighting style, because when you look at that, he basically blocks Mako's attack and like basically strikes him in the chin with no effort. So I'm very curious to see if Snoop Dogg's going to play a pivotal role in the game, at least for the first couple years of Mako's character, which I think would be really cool. It makes you wonder who else could show up in the game as well, which has me pretty excited. But that's pretty much all the new information we got from the trailer and Sega was willing to provide on Stranger Than Heaven. But we do have some more closing information. First being that the game is coming to the Xbox series of consoles, PlayStation 5 and PC, but we don't have a release date as of this moment. But that's okay, because we are getting a special event courtesy of Sega and Xbox on May 6th around 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Stranger Than Heaven. So it's going to be an even more in-depth look at the game. So hopefully around that time frame, we will get a release date or a release window. My train of thought is we could see the game maybe this year, 2026, probably like a November, maybe December release, or we could see it very early next year, 2027, that being maybe a January or February release, only because Sega has stated that they are planning to announce 2 new games that are going to come out before the end of their fiscal year, which ends in March of 2027. So Stranger Than Heaven definitely is going to show up in that time frame. Either way, I'm very excited, and I can't wait for that May 6th event either. We are going to get so much new information, hopefully some gameplay as well. I'm just so excited from this trailer, and 5 eras, this is going to be crazy. And Snoop Dogg, this game is going to be nuts. I can't contain my excitement, and that's why I said, guys, in my most anticipated games of this year list I made at the beginning of the year, I did put this as number 2 because it is up there. It lost out to Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, which that's another game we haven't got a lot of new information on since it was first revealed. I had a feeling this game could launch in 2026. I still hold on to that, but I'm perfectly fine if it launches in 2027 as well. But that's going to do it from me, everyone. I want to thank you very much for watching the video. If you managed to make it this far, please sound off in the comments. Let me know, have you ever heard of Stranger Than Heaven? Is this your first time hearing about the game? If it is, are you excited like I am? And also, are you excited to check out that special event coming out on May 6th? Because God knows I am, and I'm definitely going to watch it, and obviously make a video about any information that comes from that. But I want to thank you all very much again for watching the video. I want you all to have a great day. I want you all to be safe out there, and remember, let's rock.